Okay, guys, so chapter 28 in your book is about avoiding sentence errors, and there are three kinds of sentence errors that we see most often in Comp 1, and those are run-on sentences and comma splices and sentence fragments. Sometimes you'll see that's what your Comp 1 professor writes on your paper, that you have a sentence fragment. So this chapter is going to be about how to address those. First, we want to talk about avoiding run-on sentences. A run-on sentence is when you take two full sentences and you kind of smush them together with no conjunction, no punctuation, anything in between them. That makes it really hard for your reader to understand where your first thought stops and where your next one begins. So if you look at the example sentence at the bottom of the screen, my neighbor, Mr. Hoffman, is 75 years old. He plays tennis every Saturday afternoon. We can tell that this is supposed to be two full sentences, starting with my neighbor for the first one and starting with he for the second one. But the way it's written, that makes it extremely hard for your reader to understand what you're trying to say. And clarity is the most important thing when we're writing. If we just put a comma in there between the two sentences after the word old, we put a comma before the word he, then that is called a comma splice. A comma splice is when you join two full sentences, two independent clauses. That means they have both a subject and a verb, using only a comma, and that is an incorrect way to do that. So we have a subject, my neighbor, we have a verb, is, and after the comma we have a subject, he, we have a verb, plays. So we know that this comma is incorrect, that is a comma splice. There are a number of ways that we can fix this. We could simply make it two separate sentences. We turn that comma into a period. So my neighbor, Mr. Hoffman, is 75 years old, period. He plays tennis every Saturday afternoon, period. We could also use a coordinating conjunction with that comma, because remember, in English teacher math, a coordinating conjunction, that's our fanboys, plus a comma, is the same thing as a period. So my neighbor, Mr. Hoffman, is 75 years old, comma, but he plays tennis every Saturday afternoon, is an acceptable way to fix that sentence. We could also fix that sentence using a semicolon, as you'll see here, because again, English teacher math, a semicolon equals a period. Your book will give you a couple of other ways of fixing this. We learned about subordinating conjunctions earlier in the semester. We also learned about conjunctive adverbs, so words like however. Remember, we called those transitional expressions, and you would use those using a semicolon and a comma as well. So those are 5 ways you can fix if you have a run-on sentence or a comma splice in your paper.